to turn the service over to Jay Dean. Greet him with a Grace Evangelical Church welcome. How about it?
Thank you. All right.
It's all yours, buddy.
All right, I'm on. I'm good. Did I do it right? All right. So listen, I'm excited to be here this morning. And we are going to have a fun time in the next few minutes because we're going to go through the book of Genesis together. I know a lot of people think that the Bible is long, it's confusing, and, well, I'm ringing. Some people think it's boring. I don't think it's boring, and I hope by the end of today, you're not going to think it's boring either. It's an exciting thing. So at Walk Through the Bible, what we're going to do today is we're going to give you like a 50,000-foot view of the Bible. We're not going to go into huge detail. At times we're going to dive down into detail, but don't worry about that. I'm still ringing a little, guys. So, has anyone been to a Walk Through the Bible event before? Anytime, ever in your life? All right, good. So, this is going to be different because I'm different. All right, so let's dive right into what we've got. So, one of the things that people get confused of with the Bible is they think it's confusing, right? So I look at it as like a puzzle. And you've ever done like crossword puzzles? You've got that nice little box on the outside that gives you a picture. Has anybody got a Bible handy? Can you hold it up? Is there a picture on the outside of that? No. Usually just say Holy Bible, something like that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you that picture of the Bible. All right, so what we've done is we've divided the Old Testament that we're going to go through today into 5 different parts. All right, and I seem to have problems with the clicker suddenly. So those are the 5 different parts that we've got there. By the end of today, you're going to know all of those words. Well, you're not going to know the beginning, wandering, promised lands, but you're going to know all those words. It's a lot of them, but we're going to make it fun and exciting so that you can learn those together. Is it okay if I back up? Will that help on the ringing? All right. So there's 5 different sections that we're going to go through. Today and this morning, we're going to go through beginnings, all right? And then this afternoon, we're going to go through wanderings, promised land, kingdom, and captivity in the coming kingdom. So let's dive right in. Oh, wait a second. There's one more thing. This is all the books of the Old Testament here. And so what we've found is there's 3 different writing styles in the Old Testament, right? We have history, and then we have poetry, and then we've got prophecy in there, right? So in that blue box up on the top, we've got the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Yeah, I know this. That's called the Pentateuch, or in a synagogue it would be the Torah. And then below that, we've got 12 other books of history. They're all in the blue. And then if we switch over to that next column, now I'm colorblind. I'm told that's orange. Is that orange? Okay. To me, it looks brown. But that's the books of poetry that we have. All right. And the farthest column over, and that to me looks reddish. All right. And those are books of prophecy. We have major and minor prophets in the Old Testament. And interestingly enough, those first boxes up there along the top, they're all the same size. So there's 5 books of poetry, like there's 5 books in the first part of the Pentateuch, and then we have 5 books of major prophecy. And the books below that on that list are the minor prophets. What's the difference between major and minor prophets? More words. That's it. All right? The message is the same. It's God's word, and they have a powerful message. It doesn't mean we don't concentrate on the minor prophets ever, right? It's just more words and less words. All right, so enough of that talking. Let's dive right in. We're going to start at the beginning. Can somebody tell me the first 3 words in your Bible? In the beginning. All right. This is a good crowd. So, what's the next word after that? God. All right. So, in the beginning, I've got a friend who's another Walk Through the Bible instructor, and the way he describes the beginning is, he goes, way back when, before there was a there and a then, there was God. God was by himself. What's the next words after that? In the beginning, God created. Let's stop right there. So God created. So we're going to learn our first hand sign right now. God created everything. So let's put our hands like this. Oh, I didn't tell you. We're going to learn hand signs and key words. That's the way we're going to get this stuff nailed down. All right. So put your hands together like this. Oh, I got to warn you. I teach Awana boys, and this hand sign is one that they love because they kind of whack the people next to them. So try to avoid doing that when you're doing this. All right. So we're going to go creation like this. Now, you can put your hands down. So we don't do creation like that because it's not small. We do creation, all right? God created everything. He started with nothing, and he spoke, let there be light. And each day in the creation process, he created something else. And in the course of 6 days of creation, on the last day, he creates Adam. So he creates Adam, and he breathes into Adam the breath of life, and Adam becomes a living being. Adam is alive. He's got a soul. He's created in the image of God. God created him out of the dust of the ground and created him. He's the only thing in creation that God says that he created with the dust of the ground. Everything else he spoke, but he actually used his hands and got in there and created Adam. So what's the next thing he does after Adam? Well, creating Adam. He brings all the animals to Adam and has Adam name them. So Adam had intelligence from the very beginning. He had language. God gave that to him at the very beginning. So after everything comes, all the animals come there, and Adam is looking at these different animals, and he's, I just think it would be hilarious, that duck-billed platypus and all these other strange animals, because he looks at it and he goes, it's got a beak. It's got, a duck bill. It's the only thing like that, but it's got fur. So he comes up with duck-billed platypus. And God tells us that everything that Adam named the animals, that was that animal's name. He let Adam name everything. It's pretty cool. So then, after everything has been named, what's next? Well, God creates Eve, because God had said at the end of every day, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then when he gets to Adam, he says, it's not good that man's alone. That's why he brought all the animals to Adam and had them name them, because Adam didn't know he was alone. And God created Eve as a suitable helper for Adam. What's suitable mean? Complementary, all right? Helper. A helper helps you do something that you can't do. Eve was not less than Adam. She was his suitable helper to help him do the work. God takes Adam and Eve and he puts them in the Garden of Eden, and he gives them one prohibition, one rule. All right, so now we're at the end of the first 2 chapters in Genesis. What have we learned? We learned that everything was created by God. God created everything. He created man in his image. If he created man in his image, you and I have worth to God, right? We have value. He created marriage. He brought Eve to Adam. He gave them something to do. He puts them in the garden. He created them for work, to work in that garden. There's a lot of things there in just 2 chapters. Well, we're going to blank that screen. So now we get to chapter 3 in the book of Genesis. And this is, I can't do the dun-dun-dun, that very well. But this is where we meet the antagonist, right? Eve is in the garden. And it doesn't say where Adam was. And it doesn't matter where Adam was 5 feet away or not. There's a serpent that's talking to Eve. And the serpent says, did God really say that you couldn't eat of any tree in the garden? Now, what's he doing there? What's the devil doing there by that statement? He's getting her to doubt the goodness of God. God is holding something back, right? He's keeping the good stuff for himself. Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because that's just for me, right? He tells her this lie. Now, Eve turns around and she says, oh, no, we can eat of any tree in the garden. We just can't eat this one tree, and we're not even supposed to touch it, she says. Well, I looked in my Bible in chapters 1 and 2, and God never said that they couldn't touch it. So already, before we have sin in the world, there's some miscommunication going on there, or misunderstanding between Adam and Eve and what they heard God say. So Eve takes a bite of the fruit. She takes some to Adam. He takes a bite. She takes another bite. and they've sinned. So now we're to our second hand sign. So if we go like this with creation, right? So the way we do it and walk through the Bible, one hand sign goes into the next one, usually. All right, so we go creation like this, and then we're just going to drop our hands and go fall. All right? They fell out of a relationship with God, that perfect relationship that they had with God. So next thing we have is they're kicked out of the Garden of Eden. All right? Why? There's another tree in that garden, the tree of life. And if they eat of that, then they don't die, and they're forever in their sin. So God is protecting them by having them out of the garden. He tells them, be fruitful, multiply, go throughout the earth. Now, the thinking is about that sin. When God makes clothing for them, he has to kill an animal to make clothing for them, right? And he gives a prophecy, a little tidbit there. And he talks about what's to come, and that's Jesus ultimately. He says, the seed of the woman is going to, what? Crush the head of the serpent. The serpent's going to, go at his heel, but he's going to crush the head of the serpent. That's a foretelling of Jesus down the road. So we have creation, fall. Now, generations pass. People are filling the planet. And I was a math major, so, I always try to run numbers and stuff like that. There's a lot of people on the planet. And the Bible gives us this little commentary, just a few chapters later in Genesis. And it says, they thought about evil continually. That was on their mind all the time, was doing evil. We have God creating a perfect world here, and just a few generations later, people are wanting to do evil all the time. It's on their mind continuously. So God is sorry that he's created man. What he does is he decides he's going to destroy them. Oh, but wait. He sees Noah. And Noah's a righteous man. So then God is going to bring a flood. So he tells Noah what he needs to do. Noah, I want you to build an ark. Gives him some very good directions on how to do it. All right? And then God brings 2 of every kind of clean animal to the ark, and 2 of every unclean, 7 of every clean, brings them to the ark, and they all go into the ark. Now, how long did it take Noah to build that ark? When I was a little boy, I could not grasp this concept. All right? Why did it take 100 years? Because I was thinking I'll date myself, a 1960s mindset, right? A little boy and a little boy's now, right? Well, there's no power tools back then. It takes a long time to build a ginormous ark, which is you and your sons are little at the time, right? So they all go into that ark. So God floods the earth with water, right? So our next sign after this. We go creation, fall, and then we're going to kind of go like this with our fingers. Wiggle them and go flood like that. Okay, flood. You can say it like flood if you want, but don't tell my people that taught me that I told you to say flood, okay? So he floods the entire planet, but Noah and his family are safe, and they're floating in the ark. Well, the ark then eventually comes to a rest, and they get out, and God tells Noah's family, after they make a sacrifice to the Lord, I want you to be fruitful, multiply, spread out over the whole planet, take over the whole planet. A few generations later, we meet some guys, and they say, hey, let's build a great big city, and let's build a great big tower in that city that reaches up to the heavens so that we can make a name for ourselves, and everybody will know who we are. And that's called the Tower of Babel. Now, it's key. They wanted to make a name for themselves, and we're going to hit that in just another few chapters. So they build the Tower of Babel. We don't know what it looks like, all right? We don't know how tall it was. But God sees this, and he says, no, they didn't do what I asked them to do. They didn't spread out on the planet, all right? They're all grouping here. They didn't obey me. So God confuses their languages. Or confuses them by changing their language, right? Each family group has a different language. Anybody here speak a different language? All right. What do we got? German? Spanish? All right. I speak one language, English. I had French in high school. I don't remember a bit of it. All right? I wasn't a very good student. But each family has a different language. So God uses that to spread them out. So our next sign after we do that is we're going to put our hands like this, and kind of like you're jamming your fingers between elevator doors, right? And you just go nations, like that. All right. Do we think we can do those 4? All right. So I'm going to need you to all stand up. And we're doing this so basically we stay awake. All right? Okay. So let's try it together. All right? We're going to start down here with creation. We go creation, fall, flood, nations. All right. So this is the participatory part of this, right? Get in groups of like 4 and practice. Oh, and the person with the smallest feet has to lead. So just really quick, we'll spend like 15 seconds. Just turn around to your neighbor and do that. Here, I'll do it with you. You ready? Right? Creation, fall, flood, nations. All right, good job, my friend. All right, did you get it? All right. All right, so we'll face back this way. Let's stay standing, and then we'll try it all together here. And how did we do? I mean, you guys, honestly, some of you look like, you're really brainiacs. You really got this down. I mean, to me, it took a long time for me. So we're going to do it together so we can get this in our brains. All right, creation, fall, flood, nations. Good job. Have a seat. All right, so we've got the geography portion of the session, all right? So, we ready? Where is this? It's the Middle East, right? So, it's in the news all the time. I mean, I don't think there's a night that the national news doesn't talk about the Middle East in some way, shape, or form. But this is where the majority of our Bible story takes place, both the New and the Old Testament. All right, so what we're going to do is imagine that map, and I'm going to do this poorly. Probably you take it and you kind of swing it out like this and lay it flat on the room. So this way is which way? North, south, east, west. All right, you got that? Now, we're going to lay some areas out here on the floor for us. So let's see. Why don't we make this right in the middle? This is the promised land. So it's kind of like from here to over here somewhere, right? Actually, what we do is we'll take those pillars over there. You guys over there, can you kind of go like this? All right. That's the waves of the Mediterranean. So you guys are the Mediterranean. You can stop waving now. Oh, is that a bad joke? Okay. All right. So then this is the promised land. Right over here, we'll make this, okay? And then over here, we've got the Sea of Galilee, and then the Jordan River going down, and then back in the back, those are the people that weren't waving back at you guys. They're dead, you see. No, they're going to be like where the Dead Sea is. All right, so we've got the Mediterranean, the Promised Land, Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea back over there. Now, you got it? And the little boys are pointing at it. So back over there in that corner, can you wave to me, my friend? All right. He is right about where we're going to meet our next character. So we've learned 4 major events in the book of Genesis, and there are 4 major people in the book of Genesis. And the next one we meet is over there, and it's not really you, my friend, but we meet Abraham. He's from Ur in the Chaldees, all right? So normally I would walk down there, but I was told that I'd be out of the camera range and we might ring. So we meet Abraham, and God calls Abraham, and he says, Abraham, I want you to leave your family, everything, and go to a place where I'm going to show you. And Abraham does it. He goes. Now, his name isn't Abraham yet. God changes his name. But he leaves. I was talking about this with Awana boys one time, and the one little boy, Logan, says, what? Who does that? Well, Abraham did. And this is the thing about faith, right? It doesn't require complete understanding, right? When God tells you to do something, he doesn't have to give you all the details, but he tells you to do something. Did he give all the details to Noah and that ark? No. A little bit, all right? I want you to build an ark. He doesn't understand floods and all this other thing, right? But he obeys God. Abraham obeys God. He leaves what he knows and starts on his journey. And along with that journey, God takes him outside one evening. He goes, Abraham, I want you to look up in the stars in the heaven. He says, that's how many descendants you have. If you could count them, that's going to be like how many descendants you have. So we're going to learn our next hand sign there. So we're going to pretend like we're flicking stars up in the heaven. So we're going to go Abraham, like that. Got it? Abraham. And you're flicking little stars up there, right? Because it's as many as the stars in the heavens. How old is Abraham at this point? He's old. He's 75 years old, all right? He's an old guy. That's when God tells him to leave his land, right? He's 75. And he says, and your descendant, oh, I didn't say this part, right? Yeah, he didn't have any kids. So where's he going to get all these descendants from, right? So time passes, and his wife, who's 10 years younger, so she's 65 at this time, right? Nothing's happening, no kids. So they enact a plan, right, that he is going to father a child through her servant girl. Well, that didn't work out very well now, did it? They were trying to circumvent God's plan. Did they lack faith? I don't know. I think what happened was that there was such a length of time that they were wondering, well, maybe God wants us to do it this way. I don't know. But I know that God told them that the two of them were going to have a kid. So the funny part is God talks to him a couple times about this, and the one time Sarah's listening in through the tent, and she actually busts out laughing because she's an old lady, right? I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Is that politically incorrect? Call her an old lady. She's kind of old, and she's thinking, wait, I'm going to have a kid? What? All right? And God says to Abraham, it's like, you and Sarah, your wife, are going to have a child a year from now. Abraham is 99 years old. Sarah is 89 years old, right? That's old. My mom's 93. I would have a heart attack if I had a little brother born, at this point, right? But the next year, sure enough, they have a baby, the baby of the promise. And what's this baby's name? Isaac. Yeah, laughter. That's what his name means, laughter. All right, so we're going to learn our next sign here. We're going to go Abraham, and you kind of reach up there and grab one of those stars and swing it around and make yourself a little baby thing here, all right? Oh, and look out at the cute little face. And the great thing about this tiny little baby is there's no change in the dirty diapers, all right? Yeah, so you know what? My niece, we saw her at Christmas time, and she's got little ones, and she wanted me to change one of her little one's diapers. And I said, the last time I changed a diaper was your sister's, which was 35 years ago or something. So, yeah, little diapers. No, we're not worried about that. So we have Abraham, Isaac. Well, Isaac grows up, and God tells Isaac when he was a lad. Now, a lad is, we don't know how old. I can think what a lad means, but I'm thinking it in today's terms. So I'm thinking it's somebody like these little boys' size right here, right? But God tells Abraham, I want you to take your son, your only son, and I want you to sacrifice him to me on this mountain. Wait a second, he's the son of the promise, where all these descendants are supposed to come through. But what does Abraham do? The next morning, Abraham gets up, takes Isaac, a couple servants, they load up a donkey, and they head off. He's going to sacrifice Isaac. Now, the great part about this is he doesn't sacrifice Isaac. God intervenes. God was testing him and testing his faith. All right? But Isaac was not a little guy, because the story tells us that, well, Abraham leaves the servants and the donkey and loads up all the wood on Isaac's back for the sacrifice, and Abraham's got the fire, and they head up the mountain. So Isaac is carrying a pretty heavy load. Now, I had some young men help me unload my truck, and they look pretty strong, all right? But I don't think they can hold, and carry up a mountain 50, 60, 70 pounds of wood, all right, for a sacrifice. But they get to the top of the mountain, and Abraham puts the rocks together to build the altar, puts the wood, binds up Isaac, puts him on there. But before he binds him up, Isaac says, Dad, we've got everything we need for the sacrifice except the lamb. And what's Abraham's response? The Lord will provide. Abraham's got him on there, raises the knife up. Angel says, Abraham, Abraham, and stops him from doing it. Now I know that you trust me. Now I know that you believe me. Now I know. So what happens? They look over, and there is a ram caught in the thicket. They go over there and sacrifice that. God provided that sacrifice for them, just like he provides Jesus for you and I later on. He provides a sacrifice. See, that sin that we learned from Adam and Eve, everybody sins. Everybody, all right? And we've got a sin problem. We're going to talk about that sin problem when we come back after lunch. So we have Abraham and we have Isaac, right? Now, Isaac grows up and has a wife, Rebecca, and they can't have kids either for a while, just like mom and dad. And then suddenly one day, Rebecca's pregnant, and baby's kicking around like you wouldn't believe. And the Lord tells her, well, it's because there's two warring nations that are in you right now, fighting away. So then, two little guys are born. We have Esau, Jacob. And not only were they fighting in the womb with mom, they're fighting their whole life against one another. Jacob actually was hanging on to his brother's heel as his brother was being born first. It's like, no, I wanted to be first, right? Now they're grown up. Jacob is a smooth operator. They said these two brothers are identical twins. They're not identical twins. They're twins, but definitely not identical. Jacob is, we call him a smooth operator, smooth skin, right? And his brother, he's kind of hairy, a man's man, right? Tough guy, right? Loves hunting, and probably if they had fishing and bass boats, he would do that today, right? His brother's out hunting, and he comes back, and Jacob is a homebody. So what's he doing? He's making beef bourguignon or something like that, or lamb bourguignon, and it's red. And his brother comes up and it says, hey, give me some of that stuff. I'm starving. And Jacob goes, for your birthright. His brother goes, what is the birthright? I'm starving to death. It's not worth anything. So that thought in Esau's mind about the value of the birthright, that was not some momentary thing. I mean, he really didn't care about his birthright that he was going to get from his dad. So he sells his birthright for a bowl of stew, all right? A little bit later, we see Jacob, with his mother's help, tricks dad into giving a blessing. There's a difference between that birthright and blessing. They're two very different things. So Jacob not only gets the birthright, he gets the blessing. His brother's mad as a hornet and is going to kill him. We did the sign for Jacob too, didn't we? Oh, no, we haven't. That's right. So Jacob goes off, lives with his mother's brother. Yeah, I know, hon, it's this. I know. Oh, I thought my wife was giving me the sign for what to do. He goes off and he lives with his mother's brother, Laban, meets the woman of his dreams. Guess what? The wedding night, gets the sister, and then basically his father-in-law tricks him. But he ends up with two wives, two sisters, who are at one another's throats. So we've got a hand sign for Jacob. We're going to talk just a little bit more about this hand sign. We're going to go like this, like arm wrestling. We say Jacob. So we have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. All right? Jacob. All right. He is going to leave his father-in-law and go back home, but his brother is after him. His brother has a small army. And so the night before his brother, he's going to meet up with his brother. He's divided his family into multiple groups, and he goes off over this way. And the Lord comes to him, and he and the Lord have a wrestling match. Literally. You know, the Lord is wrestling him. And finally, the Lord touches his hip, and his hip's out of socket for the rest of his life. But he realizes one thing. He changes Jacob's name, too, to Israel. Israel means contends with God or wrestles with God. So God takes him to the very end of himself. The next day, he was expecting his family to get wiped out, get killed by his brother. And God takes him to the very end of himself. So Jacob, up to this point, has not exactly been a stellar example of a believer in God. But suddenly at this point, everything changes. And he's got a daily reminder. As a matter of fact, he's got a reminder with every single step he takes of what God expects out of him and who God is. All right? So we have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and now we're going to meet one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Now, Jacob's got 12 sons and at least one daughter, and he's got 2 wives, and this is the part that's ridiculous. It was kind of a competitive childbearing thing going on between these 2 sisters of who could have more kids. And that's why he's got all these kids, all right? It's a pattern in dysfunctional family. If you take a look at these guys, it's like, wow, you know, hate to be in that household kind of a thing. So we have one son number 11. Oh, and he's the first son of the favorite wife, right? And his name is Joseph. And he is definitely the favorite. Dad buys him an expensive coat, right? So we're going to go like this with Joseph. We're going to go Joseph, like that. Kind of like, yeah, I got awesome threads. So what does that multicolored coat mean? It means management, right? If I've got a nice 3-piece suit or a fantastic suit on, do you think I'm the one that's going out working with the sheep and the goats and shoveling the manure? All right, I've shoveled manure in my life. It's no fun thing, and I definitely would never do it in really nice clothes. No, this means management. He's in charge of his older brothers, and there's no like little age difference. I have 4 older brothers, 5 boys in 6 years, all right? I would hate to think of me telling my older brothers all the time when I was little what to do, but that's what was happening with Joseph. And he gives a bad report, and then he has a dream that the Lord gives him of his future down the road. And the dream is stars bowing down. Basically, Mom and Dad and all my brothers, you're going to be bowing down for them. And Joseph makes the mistake of telling his siblings and his dad this, and his dad chastises him for it. One day, Dad says, Joseph, why don't you go out in the field, check on your brothers? Now, they're not like just a little ways away. They're a ways away with all the animals. And he goes there, and his brothers see him. Why do they see him? Well, he's got a fluorescent coat on, right? I mean, he can be seen from quite a distance. And his brothers go, oh, here comes Dreamer Boy. Let's kill him. Wow. I mean, they're going to kill him. What do? Well, they try to kill him. They beat him up. They toss him in a pit, all right? They take his nice coat. They rip it to shreds or whatever. And a couple of the brothers leave, and the ones that are left thought, hey, wait a second, there's a caravan coming by here. Instead of just killing him, let's make some money on this deal. Let's sell him. So they sell their brother into slavery. What? Yeah, they sell him into slavery. So this is a real detour in Joseph's life, right? Because he has this vision that everybody's going to be bound down to him in his family. And now he's beat up by his siblings. He's tossed in a pit. He's pulled out of the pit, sold into slavery, ends up in Egypt. In Egypt, he gets to work for a guy, and the guy's wife accuses him of rape. He ends up getting thrown in prison. Wow, got beat up by his brothers, thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, accused of a crime he didn't commit, thrown in prison. And while he's in prison, he rises to power. And he meets 2 people in there, and they both have dreams. And so Joseph interprets their dreams for them, because God tells him what those dreams mean. And one of them is a baker, and the other one's a cupbearer, butler, yeah. So the baker meets his maker, and the cupbearer gets to go back to his job. And the cupbearer says to him, hey, when I get back in Pharaoh's court, I'll remember you and tell you about you. Well, guess what? He forgets. Years pass. Pharaoh has a dream, and it's a disturbing dream, and none of his wise men can answer it. And suddenly, the one gentleman says, hey, wait a second, there was a guy in prison that I knew. And so Joseph gets brought out of prison, cleans himself up, shaves, puts on clean clothes, goes to Pharaoh, and says, well, I can't interpret the dream, but God can. And then God gives him the interpretation of the dream. 7 years of great crops, 7 years of famine. What happens? Exactly that. But Joseph throws something a little extra in there. He goes, you're probably going to need somebody to manage all this thing. And so Pharaoh says to him, why don't you manage this and gather all the crops and do all this? So Joseph is there. 7 years of plenty. The famine starts. His family is back here, right? And Joseph is over there in Egypt. If you remember our map, he's over there. The family then has to go down there, the brothers. They go down to Egypt where there's food. Buy some food, Dad says. They go down there. Joseph recognizes his brothers right away. They don't recognize him. Why? He looks like an Egyptian, right? His hair is shaved different. He's wearing different clothes. He doesn't look like them at all. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them, right? The end of the result is Joseph's whole family ends up down there. He forgives his brothers. His life has taken a major detour, right? But he ends up saving his family down in Egypt. Everyone's down in Egypt. All right, so we want to do our hand signs here? Think we can do them? All right, so we have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. All right, so we can stand up, and we're going to go all the way from the beginning. All right? And then when we finish this, we're gonna do it twice together. All right? And then the worship team, if you can come back up, that would be great. All right, ready? Here we got our hands together. We go creation, fall, flood, nations. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Can you do it again? We're going to do it faster? No? All right, okay. All right, here we go. Creation, fall, flood, nations. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Fantastic. Stay standing. When we're done today, you're going to be able to do 40 hand signs on all those words in under 3 minutes. Yeah. Well, you just got the entire book of Genesis, the overview of that, right? 4 major events: creation, fall, flood, nations, 4 major people: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. That's the book of Genesis. All right, worship team, it's all yours.